I think we also went into it eyes open, knowing that it might not work. And I think that was something that we got comfortable with as an organisation and politically to say, well, this is a bit of a test because we need to do something. If we could wait around for something to come out of the woodwork, but we could have been here for another 5 years.
With 18 sites,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so in order to really capitalise development, the kind of choice was made. So, well, we need to take the first step. We need to show the other landowners we're willing to do something. Yeah. You need to join us in doing that.
Hello and welcome to 1.5 million new homes, the local government challenge sponsored by Redloft. So the mission is to get 1.5 million new homes built. And the key delivery arm to achieving that mission is local government, either as the planning authority or in joint venture with the private sector or directly delivering new homes by the public sector. So I'm coming to a different council every month to ask what works and what needs to change to enable councils to get more homes built. And today I'm in the London Borough of Camden. So I'm lucky enough to have some time with David Burns from the London Borough of Camden, where he is Director of Economy, Regeneration and Investment. Dave, tell us a bit about where we are now and what the potential for this place is.
So right now we are stood on Regis Road, which is in Kentish Town in the north of Camden. And this is one of our key growth areas in our local plan. And it's something we've been looking at for a number of years, and the potential here is huge. So over the last couple of years, we've been working on a regeneration strategy for the area, and then working with developers, U Capital and Joseph Homes to bring forward a master plan vision. Okay. And then coming up in the next year, planning applications. So what the potential here is for thousands of homes, over 1,000 homes, affordable, for sale, private rented, potentially some student housing within that mix. But it is a genuine mixed-use site. So alongside that, this is being badged as the Camden Film Quarter, which U Capital have brought forward the vision for, which will involve several 100,000 square foot of film and TV studios and production facilities. But it will also involve education. So there will be the National Film and Television School and the London Screen Academy are planned to have offices and teaching space on this site, alongside sort of leisure and entertainment and food and beverage, so that this site, which is currently a mix of lots of different small industrial uses and actually quite a lot of vacancy as people have moved out into a really kind of interesting, vibrant, enlivening neighbourhood, but importantly one with lots of homes, and that's really what Camden needs at the moment.
And what sort of time frame does all of that happen over?
So we're looking at planning towards the end of this year, so it's a submission by the developers with decisions towards the end of this year, with a start on site in 2026. I think the overall time frame is kind of in the 5, 6, 7 years for that development. There's existing uses, so there'll be a bit of moving around. And it has actually got quite a long history. So this has been in Camden's local plan since 2017 as a growth area. Subsequent to that, we used our planning policy powers to develop the Kentish Town framework, which covers more than just Regis Road. It also includes the other side of the railway line where Murphy's Yard is, which is another site that will have over 750, 800 homes on it, that's running for a parallel planning process. But we've been trying to use all of our planning levers to bring it forward. It's been quite stop-start. The land ownership is really complicated. There historically were, I think, 18 different landowners on
18
this. 18 different landowners with freeholds, leaseholds, subleases, lots of complicated property issues to overcome. We looked with the GLA's support at, well, how can we bring this forward? What's the best master plan approach? But came to the conclusion that actually Camden couldn't risk 7 figures on a planning application for something without having a clear route to delivery. So instead we said, well, actually Camden's one of those landowners. We've got 2 pieces of key land. Could we use that land with a development partner to bring something forward? So a couple of years ago, we made the decision to agree to a conditional land disposal to U Capital to enable the development to come forward. That actually has then precipitated the landowners here taking the choice to consolidate with Joseph Homes and U Capital. So there are now that 17 landowners has reduced, and there are 2 primary partners who are going to bring it all forward together.
What else has the council had to do to get this site going? And has it been particularly bold in your experience of working in local authority world?
Yeah, I think there's probably three things that the council's done. I think the first thing is convening, which is the kind of basic power that local government has. And so that was about getting the existing landowners together and talking them through and trying to get consensus on how do we bring something forward here together? What are the choices we need to make collectively? I think the second thing that was quite was bolder and braver of the council to do was to simply agree to dispose of its land through a straightforward disposal process rather than a traditional procurement process, which has allowed us a little bit more flexibility, but it's also, I think, importantly about pace, because it allowed us to get to a commercial arrangement that we can be confident will bring something forward in an appropriate time for it.
Does that mean that you had to kind of compromise on the financial value of what you got for the land?
No, absolutely not. I think that the land value we've got and the commercial deal we've got is still really strong. And as normal with councils, we've gone through all of our best value, best consideration processes. So actually, I think we probably ended up with a higher value than had we gone through a traditional process, because we took some of the costs out of that process. It also allowed us to get into an arrangement, commercial agreement with a more unusual developer in New Capital, a more boutique developer, you might say, who were able to bring something a bit unique to it.
And is that because there's a barrier to entry in that procurement process? Because it costs £750,000 or something just to bid, doesn't it?
Absolutely, and I think there are some organisations who just make the choice that that's not for us, that process is too complicated, we don't understand it, and you need to be well capitalised, have a good balance sheet in order to take those types of risks. So it really does exclude some companies from that process.
So how does a council position itself so that it can be that brave?
Yeah, and I think that's about a really good trusting relationship between politicians and officers. So the working environment that we have at Camden has really clear political strategic priorities, which is we need to deliver more housing. We've got our We Make Camden strategic vision that sets out how we approach things. That allows us to work together with them to build up confidence around developing a new strategy and how you might go about it. I think we also went into it eyes open, knowing that it might not work. And I think that was something that we got comfortable with as an organisation and politically to say, well, this is a bit of a test, because we need to do something. If we could wait around for something to come out of the woodwork, but we could have been here for another 5 years.
With 18 sites,
Yeah, exactly. And so in order to really capitalise development, the kind of choice was made. So, well, we need to take the first step. We need to show the other landowners we're willing to do something. You need to join us in doing that. I think the other thing that we've also been able to do, and what we're prepared to do in the future, and what we've said on this site and other sites, is councils do have land powers. So CPO and land appropriation. I think we are in the process, going through another approval process for the strategy around that, and actually just saying that we will compulsory purchase bits of land, whole plots of land, if we need to, is enough to often make people move. And then things like land appropriation to deal with quite technical, complex things like rights of light. Actually, those can really unlock complicated sites, and especially in inner urban areas where you've got a lot of density, where you've got a lot of value. Actually, those are the kind of tricky things that planning reform doesn't solve that. Actually, you need to use your existing powers, but it does involve making a public decision that you're going to do that. And so I think building up with the community and with politicians around this, if we really want to build housing, we've got to use all of our levers, and we need to use them at the right point and be prepared to say we're going to use them. So I think that's another kind of important thing.
And that must be really difficult, because you've got, like a lot of councils, like maybe most councils, you've got an up and down relationship with local communities in terms of trust. Right. So how have you built enough trust in the local community that your politicians have enough trust that you can do this sort of bold stuff?
I think it's about honesty, transparency and participation. So I think there's a kind of honesty with the resident citizens around what the trade-offs are in order to get something to happen. I think we have, with developers and ourselves directly, been clear that if we want to deliver affordable housing, that means high massing density sometimes. It means building private sale because you need the funding in order to cross-subsidise it. So I think having that kind of honest and transparent conversation with people. But then I think it is also about genuine participation. So it's not about consulting and going away. It's about how do you integrate people into the design process from a very early stage, into the kind of strategy development process. And I think across Camden on our regeneration schemes like this, on our community investment programme, Camden's really good at that. I guess as an example, on our estates where we have regeneration and we've had ballots, they've got 85-90% plus support as a kind of strong evidence base for how we've managed to really build up trust with people. And not everyone's going to be happy with everything. Not everyone likes all the designs. Not everyone likes new building and the construction that comes with it. But I think we're at a point where there are so many public benefits and local both locally to people. If you take this site in Kentish Town, it will transform the area, create new routes. It'll help deliver step-free access to the train station. It'll have around 300 to 400 affordable homes that will go to people who are currently in temporary accommodation.
Plus jobs in growth industries.
And I think thousands of jobs. The London Growth Plan was launched last week. The creative industries were fundamentally a big part of that. Camden Film Quarter was referenced in that document. These are kind of some of the jobs of the future, and they're for people in Camden. And what's great about this scheme and what's coming forward in Camden Film Quarter is you get the full spectrum from the London Screen Academy for 16 to 19-year-olds, the National Film and Television School for graduates, through to work in film and TV or in the entertainment industry.
So everyone can see a future for their kids and their kids' kids one way or another.
Absolutely, yeah. And hopefully that's something that people locally buy into and ultimately will see the benefit from.
What needs to change to enable you to do more of this, to build even more homes?
I think there's a few things. I think fundamentally it's about state capacity and the resources in order to do that. I think Camden's made the choice to invest into its planning and regeneration service over the years, but there's a lot of planning activity that doesn't cover its costs. So there is a welcome increase in fees coming, but that still leaves activity like this that essentially, for a big part of it, the council's taking a risk on the revenue cost of it. So I think that there must be a way across London and from central government of supporting additional capacity in planning and regeneration teams to think about these types of things. I think then... Is that
something in your mind that where you're taking some of the surplus from the scheme and reinvesting
it back in? Or are there kind of central pots of funding that can be allocated for this purpose?
Yeah.
I think the government is prioritising brownfield regeneration. I think that's what this is. I think the second thing then is from central government is the recognition of just how difficult brownfield regeneration is. Because as we said, there are 17 different landowners here. We've not even started to dig up the ground to see what's happening underneath the ground in terms of contamination and things like that. So there are already funds around that, but I think that's where they should tilt the emphasis is if they want brownfield to come forward, you need someone to help de-risk some of that, and part of that is about capital funding. So I think those are probably like the two main things in order to do more of it. I think the other aspect of it probably is around compulsory purchase. And so the government is making some changes to how valuation on that works. But it's a very long process. And it is uncertain. So if we started a CPO process tomorrow, it would be 24 months realistically before the land that might be needed to unlock something would become available.
And you wouldn't know at the beginning of that process how much it would cost.
How much that would cost. And then I think, the other, and I'm sure others will have made this point, Camden tries to do a lot of the delivery of new housing itself through its housing revenue account. I think like lots of housing providers and like housing associations, there's a liquidity problem. Years of changes, of regulation, all of it for the right reasons, have drained HRAs of resources. So we're now fundamentally at our borrowing capacity. And so even starting new things is incredibly difficult because we need to be able to maintain a proper repair service. We need to be able to meet regulatory standards, we need to meet fire safety standards, and we need to invest in our stock. So that really does need some support across a lot of different councils for how do you increase liquidity in the HRA.
And just for clarity, HRA is the Housing Revenue Account. This is the money that you get from housing that you're allowed by law to reinvest in housing.
Yeah, it's our own council owns housing stock in a separate ring-fenced account. All of the rent and service charges goes back to paying for the maintenance management and the borrowing.
But the cost of that maintenance and management has gone up, and the revenues haven't gone up enough to pay for that.
And there are additional investments that we need to make for, like I say, for good reasons, fire safety, damp and mould, that will continue for some time.
So what's the solution? Is the solution some sort of debt relief? Do you think clearing the HRAs and starting again from scratch? Is it that drastic?
I think that would be ideal. I think we've got to recognise current constrained public finances.
Yeah.
I think there's probably something of for example, a strategic housing fund that London could have that would be able to invest in the sites and places that were most likely to deliver in the right time frame. So I think something like a repayable low or no interest loan that takes a long-term view, because things like estate regeneration inevitably are quite long-term, that perhaps you can invest into a first phase that unlocks it, and then you continue to recycle it through. And so, none of that's new, that's been done before. I think you could do it at a scale in collaboration between councils and the GLA, with the right investment powers devolved to the GLA in order to make that happen. And then you can really then focus on the places that are going to have the biggest impact in terms of housing numbers.
What else needs to change to enable you to build even more new homes?
So I think central government's made good progress in planning reform with kind of quick changes to the NPPF recently, and they're continuing to work on that, and we participate with them, engage with them on that. I think probably what we need to have a good look at is the next level down and get quite forensic, because what's happened to planning over the years, for lots of good reasons, policies have changed to try and mitigate lots of different things, to try and implement policies that come from a good place, play space, daylight, sunlight, orientation of buildings, climate change. These are all good things and the right things.
Unintended consequences.
The unintended consequences, and also you're asking planning to an awful lot. And so now, I think if we, my chief planner, Dan Pope, who's excellent, and we've got a really excellent team. 15 years ago, a 50,000 square foot building would have been 20 pages of a planning report.
Right.
Now you 200, 300 plus all the appendices and all of the technical reports that go with it. And so I think, how do we unlayer all of that and really focus on what's the most important thing for planning to deal with, and where are the other agencies and other responsibilities that you're not asking planning to do at all, because it can.
Is there a role for AI in that, artificial intelligence, in reducing the administrative workload?
I think absolutely, new technology for sure. Camden is working on the PlanX system with central government and with other councils. That includes things like digital site notices, digital validation. And so I think validation is definitely one way that AI can help. It can immediately spit out an answer of whether something is valid or isn't valid, whether the drawing is accurate, if something's missing. So I think that type of intervention is definitely worth testing out. I think even, right down to, there's lots of small things that councils have to deal with as planning authorities, permitted development and prior approvals, all of the plans that get assessed as part of that process. Even being able to say, does this need planning permission? Like, if you can, that's one of the things we've been working on, is a sort of automated process that is able to give someone a fairly easy yes/no, so that they can just get on with whatever it is they want to do, and they don't need to ever speak to a planning officer, which then means that planning officer can spend their time on something much more valuable and impactful.
Like making this into houses, bringing 17 different landowners together to create thousands of new homes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
David Burns from London Borough of Camden, thank you very much for your contribution to getting 1.5 million new homes built.
Thanks, David.
So that's it for another super sunny day at 1.5 million new homes, the local government challenge sponsored by Redloft. We're going to be back in a few days with more from the London Borough of Camden. But until then, if you could hit like or subscribe if you like what we're doing, we'd be really grateful. Look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you for watching.